Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All Gurus to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachardine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatade Shatardine Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So we're continuing Madhya Lila, chapter 1, text 26. I offer innumerable obeisances unto the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, who is so kind that he spread the service of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world. Text 27. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to address Nityananda Prabhu as his elder brother, whereas Nityananda Prabhu addressed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his Lord. Text 28. Although Nityananda Prabhu is none other than Balaram himself, he nonetheless always thinks of himself as the eternal servant of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 29. Nityananda Prabhu requested everyone to serve Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, chant his glories, and utter his name. Nityananda Prabhu claimed that person to be his life and soul who rendered devotional service unto Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 30. In this way, Srila Nityananda Prabhu introduced the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to everyone without discrimination. Even though the people were fallen souls and blasphemers, they were delivered by this process. Text 31. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then sent the two brothers, Sri Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami, to Vraja. By his order, they went to Sri Vrindavan Dham. Text 32. After going to Vrindavan, the brothers preached devotional service and discovered many places of pilgrimage. They specifically initiated the service of Madan Mohan and Govindaji. Text 33. Both Sri Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami brought various scriptures to Vrindavan and collected the essence of these by compiling many scriptures on devotional service. In this way, they deliver all rascals and fallen souls. Text 34. The Goswamis carried out the preaching work of devotional service on the basis of an analytical study of all confidential Vedic literatures. This was in compliance with the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thus, one can understand the most confidential devotional service of Vrindavan. Text 35. Some of the books compiled by Srila Sanatana Goswami were Haribhakta Vilas, Brihadbhagamrita, the Sami Tipani, and the Sami Charita. Text 36. We have already given the names of 4 books compiled by Sanatana Goswami. Similarly, Srila Rupa Goswami has also compiled many books, which no one can even count. Text 37. I shall therefore enumerate the chief books compiled by Sri Rupa Goswami. He has described the pastimes of Vrindavan in 100,000 verses. Text 38. The books compiled by Sri Rupa Goswami included Bhakti Risa Sindhu, Vidaga Madhava, Ujavala Nimalani, and Lalita Madhava. Text 39 to 40. Sri Rupa Goswami also compiled the Danakeli comedy, Satbala Vali, Lila Chandana, Padvalavi, Govinda Virudavali, Mathura Mahatmya, and Nataka Varnana. Text 41. Those who can count the rest of the books, headed by Lagu Bhagavad written by Srila Rupa Goswami, he has described the pastimes of Vrindavan in all of them. Text 42. Sri Rupa Goswami's nephew, Srila Jiva Goswami, has compiled so many books on devotional service that there is no counting them. Text 43. In Sri Bhagavat Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami has written conclusively about the ultimate end of devotional service. Text 44. The most famous and formidable transcendental literature is the book named Gopala Champu. In this book, the eternal pastimes of the Lord are established, and the transcendental mellows enjoyed in Vrindavan are completely described. Text 45. Thus, Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and their nephew Srila Jiva Goswami, as well as practically all of the family members, lived in Vrindavan and published important books on devotional service. Text 46. The first year after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the renounced order of life, all the devotees, headed by Sri Advaita Prabhu, went to see Lord at Jagannath Puri. Text 47. After attending the Rath Yatra ceremony at Jagannath Puri, all the devotees remained there for 4 months, greatly enjoying the company of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by performing kirtana, chanting and dancing. Text 48. At the time of departure, the Lord requested all the devotees, please come here every year to see the Rath Yatra festival of Lord Jagannath's journey to the Gandicha temple. Text 49. Following the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the devotees used to visit Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu every year. They would see the Gandicha festival at Jagannath Puri and then return home after 4 months. Text 50. For 20 consecutive years, this meeting took place, and the situation became so intense that the Lord and the devotees could not be happy without meeting one another. I'll stop here, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Madhya. Hare Krishna. So, Hare Krishna devotees. So, it's a different kind of section today, but with lots of information, actually big purports. But they're all describing different books written by Goswamis. So they're very high literature. I don't have so much knowledge about them myself. So I'll read out few sentences from a few purports also today, because I don't know much about those books myself also. So the context wise, we are in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila. We're in the first volume. What we discussed so far yesterday is that initially Adar Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami offered obeisances and prayers to the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda Prabhu, and seeking their blessings. And also, he offered these obeisances to the 3 main deities: Sambandha deity, Radha Madan Mohan; Avideya deity, Radha Govinda; and then also Prayojana deity, which is Radha Gopinath. And then after that, we heard him glorifying the author of Chaitanya Bhagavat, that is Vrindavan Das Thakur. He was glorifying him, and saying that I'm only describing the remnants of what he left, like that. And then we heard brief division of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes in Chaitanya Charitamrita. How Lord Chaitanya's pastimes are divided into 2 major sections. First, Adi Lila, which comprises the first 24 years of Lord Chaitanya's Lila till he took sannyas. And the second division is Sesha Lila, which covers the later 24 years of Lord Chaitanya's life. And then we heard the previous verses that describe this Sesha Lila, the later pastimes of Lord Chaitanya for 24 years, are further subdivided into 2 major sections. The first 6 years where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveled throughout India, specifically Jagannath to Bengal and Cape Comorin to Vrindavan, it is described. So that is described in Madhya Lila of this book. And then the rest of the 18 chapters are described in Antya Lila. And within the 18 years of last 18 years of Lord Chaitanya is described in Antya Lila. We heard how for 6 years of that he spent time with devotees by giving them Krishna Prema through chanting and dancing, like that. And the last 12 years, he was relishing, Lord Chaitanya himself was relishing Krishna Prema in the mood of Srimad Radharani. There is a sense of the sections from yesterday. And then we started to describe the last 2 verses from yesterday, were describing how Lord Chaitanya instructed Nityananda Prabhu to go to Bengal and preach, because he personally could not go he wanted to stay on the order of his mother, whereas he wanted Nityananda to preach everywhere. And Nityananda, we heard, he was very much inspired in rendering devotion service himself, and then also he distributed the Krishna Prema anywhere and everywhere. That's what we heard yesterday. Now back to today's section. So we're continuing Lord Nityananda's glories now, how Lord Nityananda Prabhu preached. That's what we'll continue till 30th verse. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is offering obeisance to Nityananda Prabhu again one more time. So many times he's offering obeisances. Yeah, he's saying Nityananda Prabhu is so kind that he spread the service of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world. So if you notice, Nityananda Prabhu is not telling, please serve me, please worship me like that. He's telling, please worship Lord Chaitanya. That is his mode. We'll come to know in the next few verses also. He's saying, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to address Nityananda Prabhu like elder brother. But Nityananda Prabhu, on the other hand, used to address Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his Lord. That means he considers always Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his master. Okay, whereas Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is considering him as elder brother. Elder brother means generally someone looks up to, like that. But Nityananda Prabhu is opposite. He wants to consider Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always master. In fact, actually next verse I'll describe. So by the way, these verses don't have purport. Although Nityananda Prabhu is none other than Balaram himself. Balaram means he's also Supreme Person of Godhead like Krishna. But he always thought himself as the eternal servant of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is the mode. In fact, Acharyas, when they're describing about Balaram, what is the specialty of Balaram versus Krishna? They describe how Krishna and Balaram are the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, number one. However, there are a couple of differences. Sometimes it's described like this. Okay, one difference of Balaram from Krishna is the complexion. That is white complexion, unlike Krishna. That is one simple distinction they describe. That is external appearance. But then second distinction that is described is that Balaram is always in the mood of service towards Krishna. That is another mood is described. In fact, we heard in the Adilila that how Balaram expands in so many ways to facilitate devotion service to Krishna, to facilitate service to Krishna in so many ways like that. So that is the other thing we hear about Balaram. So that mood is coming up here also. Even when he came as Nityananda Prabhu, he is situated in the mood of service as eternal servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's the only mood he wanted to be in. So with that mood of being servant of Lord Chaitanya, what did he do? He requested everyone to serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How? By chanting Lord Chaitanya's glories and by uttering his names like Jai Satchinandana, Jai Gaura Hari, like that. So Nityananda Prabhu claimed that person to be his life and soul. That means if somebody worships Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with bhakti, Nityananda Prabhu claimed that person is life and soul. So now we understand the key of getting mercy of Lord Nityananda, which is to worship Lord Chaitanya. But we also find out later on in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that the key to get Chaitanya mercy is also to get the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. It is like what do you say, reciprocal kind of thing. So both are important. That means we should worship both Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. That is a simple conclusion from our perspective. Now, 30th verse, Nityananda Prabhu, this way when he asked everybody to chant the glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, chant the names of Guru Mahaprabhu, he introduced the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult to everyone without discrimination. That is another important thing about Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu did not see, oh, this person is qualified, this person is not qualified. No, he extended his mercy to everybody. So now, everybody means includes what? There's Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is qualifying. Even people who are fallen souls and blasphemers also. Generally, practicing devotees like us, even if you go to the next stage of Madhyamadikari, we're encouraged not to associate with envious people, not to preach to envious people. We are encouraged to avoid the envious people because our faith is not so strong like the great Uttamadikari devotees, where They can handle any blasphemy against Krishna or anything like that. But for ours, we cannot handle properly. Number one. Number two is for the envious soul benefit also, that we don't disturb them like that. But Nityananda Prabhu obviously is the Supreme Lord himself. So he has the power to deliver even those envious people, blasphemers, fallen souls like that. That is the greatness of Nityananda Prabhu. Now this was describing Nityananda Prabhu's mood and his preaching. Now next, the other shift the mood towards achievement of Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. Sanat Goswami and also Jiva Goswami, actually. Three Goswamis. He started to describe achievements. This is from 31st to 45 hours. So this is the section where there are big purports. Primarily describing the different literatures they wrote, what are the different contents. In fact, Prabhupada chose to write every chapter name in that actually purport. I don't know why, but Prabhupada wanted to give an idea probably for all of us. What kind of books are written by Goswamis like that. And definitely, we can know about them because sometimes very senior Vaishnavas refer to them and share with us some things from them. But from our perspective, we should make sure we're conversant with Srila Prabhupada books first. Then we can refer to the other books also. It's okay sometimes referring to other books, other Acharyas books also, to supplement our reading of Prabhupada books. For example, when we're reading Nectar of Devotion in Bhakti Shastri, we refer to Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, for example, like that. So that's okay. But some of these books are very higher level. So one general principle is, not principle, practice is that we need to consult our guru, our speech master, our mentor before we buy books that are not commonly heard, not Prabhupada books like that. When we're venturing to outside Prabhupada books, even our acharyas, we check with our mentor or guru whether a certain book is okay to buy or not, number one. Number two, when is it the right time to read that book for me? Like that, we check. So that is a good practice we all follow, practicing devotees follow. Because sometimes we might read a high big book, but our consciousness may not be ready yet. Then what will happen is, then it can affect our devotion service for some time, like cover our devotion service for some time. So that is why it is important to get the foundation straight with Srila Prabhupada books. And then sometimes our mentor and speech master might encourage buying a book, but then they tell us when is the right time to read books like that. In fact, I have a whole set of books that I have planned to read, but I'm not qualified to read yet. So like what I'm completing, whatever I need to do before that, like that. So now going back to these purports, let's go through them one at a time. Let me keep the purport open. Text 31. Okay, 31 doesn't have purport. Okay. This is talking about how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, remember previous section talked about Lord Chaitanya sent Nityananda Prabhu to Bengal like that for preaching. Similarly, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami to Vrindavan, Raja. And by his order, they went to Vrindavan Dham like that. Now, next verse is describing after going to Vrindavan, what did they do? What did Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami do? They preached devotion service and they discovered many places of pilgrimage. This is sometimes the place of pilgrimage in Vrindavan can be temples or can be places like Govardhan, identifying Radha Kund, Shyama Kund, like that. Different places of pilgrimage. That's what this means. Places where pastimes of Krishna and Radharani were done. And his associates were done. That's what they discovered them. So that way, we all, if you now go to Vrindavan Yatra, we have an opportunity to see those places and take benefit of those places by hearing Krishna Katha at that places like that. And then they also initiated the service of Radha Madan Mohanji and Radha Govindji in Vrindavan, in the respective temples there. So this also doesn't have purport. From 33, Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, what else they did? They brought various scriptures to Vrindavan. And then what did they do? They read those scriptures and they collected the essence of those scriptures by compiling many scriptures on devotion service. Because Vedic scriptures are vast. So what they did is, whatever is essential for our devotion service, they wrote in a summary form for us, for our benefit. That way, they delivered even rascals and fallen souls. That means very low personalities also can get benefited like that. In the BVT purport, Prabhupada's purport in this verse, Prabhupada is writing how Vedic scriptures purpose is to understand Krishna. And the Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami wrote literatures to help us understand Krishna through devotion service. That is a, and that too, what kind of devotion service? Devotion service that is explained in the Vedic literature. That means there is a foundation for devotion service is perfect, not just sentimental devotion service. Devotion service that is based on scriptures. Actually, next purport, Prabhupada emphasizes that point more actually. 34th verse purport, the Goswamis, what did they do? They carried out the preaching work of bhakti on the basis of an analytical study of all conventional Vedic literatures. That means not just sentimental basis, but on the basis of strong foundation of scriptures. That is the point Prabhupada is driving home in the purport actually. This is in compliance with the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is also important. There are a sect of people who are called Prakrita Sahajiyas, Prabhupada writes in the purport. They did not bother about Vedic literature, scriptures, how do we practice devotion service. They jumped to just to the higher level. Oh, I'm in ecstasy seeing Krishna. I'm going to dance with women like Krishna dance, like that. They uh, imitated Krishna, not followed the directions given in scriptures for practicing bhakti. So we heard in the previous section, actually a couple of chapters ago in Adi Lila, that how Lord Chaitanya himself did not take up that mood of Krishna. He took up the mood of Radharani, searching for Krishna like that. So these people, they say that they're followers of Lord Chaitanya, but they're not even following like Lord Chaitanya. They're imitating Krishna instead. So that's not a authorized one. Instead, they followed the process recommended by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is to perform devotion service according to instructions given in the scriptures. So thus one can understand the most confidential devotion service of Vrindavana. That is by giving the process of devotion service that is given by Goswamis, right? By following in their footsteps, we can understand the most confidential devotion service of Vrindavan, which is the devotion service as performed by Vraja Gopis, like that. That's all possible by following in footsteps of our acharyas. In fact, you probably heard we are also called as Rupanugas. That means we're followers of Rupa Goswami, like that. And then text 35. Oh, this is a purport with big purport. Prabhupada is describing many of these books. So some of the books compiled by Srila Sanatana Goswami are Haribhakti Vilas, Brihad Bhavatamrita, Dasama Tippani, Dasama Charita. Prabhupada doesn't elaborate on this particular scripture called Dasama Charita in the purport. So I don't know much about that myself. But he describes about the other three. I'll briefly describe them. Haribhakti Vilas, Prabhupada in fact describes each of the purport, each of the chapter, what is there in that Haribhakti Vilas. But essentially, it has so many things that describe about different methods of practices in devotion service, methods of cleanliness, methods of remembering Krishna, methods of chanting the holy name, methods of initiation even, how to observe the festivals, and how to contract the offenses, how to perform different Vaishnava rituals, how to perform Ekadasi. In fact, you might have heard when devotees describe about Shivratri, for example, they quote some Haribhakti Vilas, how it's to be observed like that. So in one sense, it's a very comprehensive literature for devotees to follow. But also, Prabhupada did not give so much emphasis on learning from this literature and following like that, at least while he was here. So also, another aspect I want to highlight is Haribhakti Vilas is a very elaborate scripture with very, very detailed guidance in terms of, there are very, very strict things that are described in Haribhakti Vilas. Some of them at our level, we may not be able to practice also. It's so much austere. For example, it talks about Ekadasi. You're supposed to stay up all night like that kind of things. So Prabhupada kept it simple for us, the devotion service. But of course, it's not that we should not read it, but we should, if you read it, we should take careful guidance. How do we apply that principle like that for us? Because if you if you stay up all night for Ekadasi, next day we cannot go to office, for example, and next day we cannot do chanting. That's not desirable like that. For our based on our capacity, we are supposed to follow. So Prabhupada also indicates that Sanatana Goswami himself wrote another commentary for Haribhakti Vilasism. It's called Digdarshini Tika. That's what Prabhupada describes. And another thing that is important to remember, this Haribhakti Vilas original content for this came from other Goswami, Gopala Bhatta Goswami. So Gopal Bhatta Goswami, if you remember, his parents were Sri Vaishnava family in Sri Rangam. So he collected so many, how Sri Vaishnavas perform different rituals, festivals like that. He collected all that and gave it to Sanatana Goswami to compile. So Sanatana Goswami compiled it, is described. And then he wrote a commentary on top of it. Now, next literature, Brihad Bhavatamrita. This is a very wonderful literature. This is also a little bit advanced, generally recommended to read after Srimad Bhavatam, ideally. So Brihad Bhavatamrita also has two parts. First part talks about how, I'm telling in my own words, basically it deals with how, who is the greatest devotee. Narada Muni is in a quest to find the greatest devotee like that. So in that process, devotees are glorified and devotion service is glorified like that. That is one aspect. Second part of Brihad Bhavatamrita is a journey of a devotee called Gopakumar, who gets a mantra from his spiritual master and he chants that mantra very faithfully. And he goes through different layers of the universe. He goes through Shivaloka, Vaikuntha Loka, even heavenly planets first, before that, Brahma Loka before that, and then goes to spiritual world. He goes through different realms of spiritual world, even finally reaching the Goloka Vrindavan with the power of the mantra. That's a description. This is like a uh, description of Srimad Bhagavatam, but in a story form, basically. That's why I'm calling it. So it is a simple way, but drives some bigger points like how Rajagopi's devotion is the best. What is the nature of the devotion? Like there also points are also given in this one. Next to Dasamatippani, Prabhupada describes, this is a commentary of Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto by Sanatana Goswami, it seems. And it's also another name for that is Brihad Vaishnava Toshani Tika. So like that. And then Dasamacharita, I did not see anything on this topic. In the purport, I could not find anything. So I don't know. So now that he describes Sanatana Goswami's books, he describes 4 other books. He's saying, I've described 4 names books, but Rupa Goswami wrote unlimited number of books, which no one can even count, like that he's saying. Specifically saying that seventh verse, Rupa Goswami wrote pastimes of Vrindavan directly. That means high-fi pastimes of Krishna Lila for 100,000 verses. Just to put this in perspective, Srimad Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses. Bhagavad Gita is 700 verses. 100,000 verses is like 5 times Srimad Bhagavatam. That many verses he wrote in numerous books, basically. In fact, some of the books are so high beyond people of Kali Yuga that Jiva Goswami had to do Grantha Samadhi for some of them, it seems. That means he did not want any unscrupulous people to get hold of them also. Even after doing that, there are still some high literatures left by Rupa Goswami that we have access to today. So some of them are here. So now 30th verse, some of the other books by Rupa Goswami are Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This we commonly hear as a Netra devotion, which is a summary study by Srila Prabhupada that he compiled for Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This describes the devotion service. Prabhupada called it, this describes the science of devotion service or science of rasa. That means it describes different stages of bhakti, even to the highest stage of Raganuga Bhakti also. All different things are described. All the 5 primary rasas, how they work, how the secondary rasas work, all that is described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And when you do Bhakti Shastri, we'll go through at least around half of this book, basically. Later half is not covered because they're very advanced, but it's available in Nectar Devotion form, for example, for us to read later on with our consultation with our mentors, like that. So now Vidagdha Madhava and Lalita Madhava are two other literatures by Rupa Goswami. These are two dramas. We'll hear more about how Rupa Goswami conceived this in the later chapters of Madhya Lila. But Vidagdha Madhava is about description of like a drama format of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, it seems. And then Lalita Madhava, on the other hand, is the Krishna's pastimes in Dwaraka. In fact, Satyabhama came in the dream of Rupa Goswami to separate this one drama into two. Otherwise, he was originally planning to write one drama. We'll hear that pastime in later chapters of Madhya Lila. And then another very, very exalted literature is Ujjvala Nilamani. Prabhupada writes in the purport so many chapters in this. Basically, this has the 10th canto pastimes of Krishna, right from childhood pastimes to different pastimes are there in Ujjvala Nilamani. So now, yeah, that covers it. And then Prabhupada in this purport, let me see, I think this purport only. Oh, no, 41st purport. Okay. So then, okay, actually Prabhupada describes all this in the 41st purport, but that's fine. Same thing, we covered it. Yeah. Next is Rupa Goswami also write these other books. It seems Tanakali, Kaumudi, Stavavali. Stavar means collection of poems. Lila Chanda, Padjavali is also collection of poems. Govinda Vidavali. Oh, sorry, Padjavali is a collection of poems. I don't know about Stavavali. Govinda Vidavali, Madhura Mahatmya, Natak Varnana, like that. These are several books described here. Let me see. The purport doesn't have much information. I thought of 3940. Let me see. Yeah, 3940 does not have purport. In the 41st purport, Prabhupada did not focus on these books. He focused on the previous verse, books mentioned in the previous verse only. So I don't know much about these. Definitely these are great literature from Rupa Goswami. Now, some of the other books by Rupa Goswami are headed by Raghu Bhagavatamrita is saying. Remember, we heard about Brihad Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami. So, Raghu Goswami was a younger brother of Sanatana Goswami. So, he wanted to call himself, his scripture as Lagu. Lagu means small. Brihad means great. Lagu Bhagavatamrita, like that. So, he wrote and he described Vrindavan pastimes in all of them is described. Prabhupada, in this purport, he writes few more books. Oh, the books that we wrote, right? Yeah, the books we discussed only, nothing else. Oh, he also describes Laghu Bhagavatamrita in this purport. Laghu Bhagavatamrita describes two main things. One is what is the right evidence to understand Vedic knowledge, like that. The Shabda Brahma, like that. And then Shabda Praman, like that. And then also, he describes about different incarnations of Krishna and how Krishna is the supreme Lord, origin of all the incarnations. And he writes about different incarnations of the Krishna in this book, it seems. I did not read this, but is often quoted when incarnations are discussed in detail like that. But BBT offered it to us, luckily. The BBT has a translation of this book for us. Now 42nd verse, 734 already. Okay, 42. Let me see. I think there are big purports. I think I'll pause here. We'll continue next week from 42 verse because there are big purports. I want to at least mention few of the points also from their verse. So we pause at 41. We'll continue from 42 in the next session. Thank you, devotees. Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita ki jai, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami ki jai, Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Let's offer obeisance to devotees. Vanchakalpatarubhescha Kupasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.